Hey David, welcome to your online lesson. So we're gonna go over a few things here. I definitely think I can see what is causing your hook and pull. So first thing we're gonna look at is your setup. Setup's pretty good. Just for reference, I like to see the balls of the feet, the kneecaps, and the armpits all in a line, and you do a great job of that, so no worries there. But as we take it back, one thing I like to see is the club head more on the hands, and this club head matching the spine angle, which you do a pretty good job of. This club face is in a pretty good position at this point, besides the fact that it's quite behind the hands and your hands kind of shoot outside. So if we drew a line on your hands, I'd like to see the hands move, more inside this line, but you kind of lift the hands pretty early and don't get them tracking inside early. And that will show at the top of your swing here, where you have this is a result of the club head rolling inside, right? And your really high hands show that. So your hands are really high at this point. The usual fault I see is, they're a little too far outside, kind of on the balls of their feet, and I try to move them more towards this green line, kind of on your heels. But you are on the far end of the spectrum where your hands are super outside, and that basically limits your rotational freedom. And you look like you move decently well. You look like you're pretty flexible. So the issue in that lies in you're not allowing yourself the ability to rotate. The next flaw I see is how laid off this shaft is. Now, for someone who's laid off, the shaft can't move any further behind them, which is fine. You see players like Xander Schauffele with laid off shafts. But what they do is they hold that shaft angle all the way into their downswing as they drop their hands behind them. But to do that, they need a deeper hand path, and your hand path is so far out. And it really looks like this shoulder is externally rotated a lot. So you don't have anywhere for the hands and arms to move. So what you're going to notice here is your hands basically come straight down because they can't kick out at all. And the shaft will actually start to tip out in this direction. So let's draw a line here where the shaft is set up, or at the top, sorry. And we'll start to see kind of where it moves in transition. So as you can see, it starts to steepen as it comes down. And ideally, for a better player, it would move it would either stay here or it would start to kind of shallow out. Because you're so laid off, it doesn't have any room to shallow out, and that's fine. We can work with a laid off position, but I would like to neutralize that a little bit. The next thing I see, this club face is extremely closed, and that's a product due to your grip is a touch stronger, but you combine that with a really bowed wrist right here, and what that's going to do is really close that club face. Now, what I see in players who slice the ball is they have a really open club face, and they'll come way over the top to get this path going left, so the ball will actually start to slice rather than be a huge block out to the right. You actually do the opposite, where you get this path going way to the right, and that allows you to hit hooks, because if you had the path going even neutral, you would see a huge pull here to the right and probably have some contact issues out of the heel. So that is a product, or that is what creates this really high follow through, right? So you can see the shaft start to kick out here. And by the time we get here, the club head's already out in front of the hands because you have no room to drop the club behind you. And so we start to see this really high follow through to kind of limit how much left this path can go. So that's where we get your really high follow through and a lot of side bend here. So the way we're going to clean this up is we're going to move a few directions here. One, we're going to try to get this hand path deeper, right? It doesn't have to be all the way inside at the moment, but we just want it moving more in this direction at the top, more behind you. So let's start with baby steps. Let's try to get the hands more, oh, that's a terrible line, my apologies. Get the hands more kind of over your ankle. And the first place we can do that is getting these hands to move more inside in the takeaway. The next thing we're going to do, so that's point one. We're going to get the hands a little bit deeper. The next thing we're going to do is get the shaft a little bit less laid off. I really do like your wrist angles. I just would like to see the shaft a little bit more vertical, so we have room to lay it down, right? And when we combine that with a deeper shaft, we can get a lot more rotational freedom in the body. So next thing we're going to do here is get this shaft alignment a little bit better. So what we're going to do to influence that is we're going to get, once we get these hands a little bit more inside, right, we're going to get the club head more outside the hands and take away. We're going to do some work trying to feel like the shaft is a little bit more vertical. It may even feel like it's super across the line, but I don't think you're quite going to get there yet, especially if we get you with a little bit weaker grip, which moves me on to my next point. We're going to weaken the grip, which will allow us to kind of keep these wrist angles while neutralizing the face a little bit. That'll help get the face a little bit more, square to your forearm angle, because as you can see right now, if we put a line on that face and then a line on your arm, those angles are vastly different. We want to see those looking somewhat similar for a neutral setup. Then that should allow us to rotate a little bit better in the downswing and have the shaft fall more behind us rather than kick out in front of you here, and lead to that really high follow through, right? And I'm interested to see one more thing here. If we go to the top of your swing here, you do get a really good body turn, which is interesting because usually with a better body turn, I see deeper hands. So we're gonna have to manufacture some lower arms at this point. If we draw a line on your hips here, you do have a little bit of early extension, and that's just a product of you trying to make sure this path doesn't go out to the left here. So main things, we're gonna weaken your grip just a touch and get this face a little bit more open at the top. Get these hands a little bit more behind you, and get this shaft in a little bit more vertical position. Basically just working on some backswing stuff, and then we can start to work on some downswing stuff to get you rotating just a little bit better. All right, so we'll get to work on that. Now I'll send you some drills over, and we can get started, all right?